I just knew physically that I was not in a good place. I think I mentioned to you that even when I would go to grab coffee, and if the barista would ask me, like, hey, how are you, right? My eyes would start swelling. My son, in his broken words, asked me a question like, Mom, are you loving me less? And that was the first time I went to the doctor. She did a whole bunch of tests, and we found physically my health had deteriorated. The thing was so bad, I was given only 3 months to live. And I had to have a very important conversation with my husband then. It's like, can I leave?
Second act, lives beyond the job title.
Hey folks, welcome back. For nearly 2 decades, Bosky Mukherjee has played the career game the way most of us are taught to. She worked hard, she climbed the ladder, never leave without a backup plan. And then, for the first time in her career, she just walked away. No next job, no safety net. Today, she's building PM Dojo and She Trailblazes. She helps senior women leaders grow their influence and founders scale their businesses. Bosky, welcome to the second act.
Thank you for having me, Gayatri. Really excited.
Your journey is a very interesting one. Let's go back, a blast from the past, right? What was the moment when staying started to feel riskier and you thought about leaving?
Oh my God. So that was way back, I would say about 8 or 9 years ago, when I started kind of feeling, didn't know what I was feeling at that point in time. I think like so many people, because I was in this cycle of trying to prove myself and just constantly telling myself, just fix this one more thing, just one more month, just do this differently and everything's going to be fine. Like I've felt the need to leave my previous roles a lot of the times. There is a joke my husband always says, like I've always told him, I have to leave. And I've said this countless times, but this time it was very different. It all started with, I just knew physically that I was not in a good place. I think I mentioned to you that even when I would go to grab coffee, and like there was a Starbucks close to our office, this is way before pandemic, so we used to go to the office. And if the barista would ask me like, hey, how are you, right? My eyes would start swelling. And there was this feeling of this just pressure in my chest, like everything is just trying to come off and come out of my body. Like I had no idea. And so I was dealing with this for months, right? Like just not being able to, I wasn't even able to process things. I was making bad decisions every day. I would lose my temper at work with my team members. And of course, I was lashing out at home. My son was barely 3 at that point in time. And so I never even wanted to come home. Like I would actually text my nanny. We had a nanny at that point in time, and I would text her like, are you guys out? And if she would say, yes, we are out, then I would come home. Otherwise, I would go to a waffle place 500 steps away from my house, and I would sit there and wait. And I was just doing stress eating. So, I mean, there were a lot of things. There were signs, but I was not acting. And I think for me, my son, in his broken words, asked me a question like, Mom, are you loving me less? Like, why are you loving me less? And I think for me, that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is not good. Now, maybe I have crossed the threshold. And I had no idea how to answer. And that was the first time I went to the doctor. She did a whole bunch of tests, and we found physically my health had deteriorated so much. That was the trigger. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, I need to do something. The thing was so bad, I was given only 3 months to live. Like it was really, really bad, really bad. And I think when something like that happens, that forces you to evaluate what you're doing, or living, what are the things that you're deciding on. And I had to have a very important conversation with my husband then. It's like, can I leave? Because I didn't even think that I could leave without having another option in hand. As an immigrant, I don't think we think like this. And I had a very unhealthy relationship with money and financials. And so I just had to have this conversation with him. I'm like, okay, what if I leave? Are we going to be okay? Right? And for how long are we going to be okay financially? And he said, just leave. And that was it. That was it. So I think there were few things that happened. I think if my son hadn't asked the question, I think I would have continued on my pathway to continue to keep on proving and trying to fix and trying to do. I don't think I would have left.
Wow. I mean, that's, thank God he asked it at the time he asked it, because that was a pretty scary time. So do you feel like the pressure that you had at work, was that something that you didn't even realize that was happening to you? And then this kind of a health scare really made you reflect a lot more?
So I think for me, I used to take a lot of pride in being a workhorse. I was part of the C-suite team at that point in time, right? And I think a lot of us think that if we somehow reach the C-suite, we're going to just tell everyone else to do. Yes, of course, it's not an easy job. Politically, it's a hot mess. But it's not going to be like an IC, right? Where you're sitting down and like trying to do because there's someone on top of you who's trying to say things. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I was the president of the company at that point in time, right? But I think I had gotten into this weird habit. So I was always very hardworking, right? So like work hard, put in the hours, don't stir the pot, don't create trouble. Like these were the things I've learned as a little girl and continued with those things up till the very top. But I would somehow get a high when someone would make comments like, it sounds so bad right now. When someone would say, oh my God, Bosky never stops.
Mm.
She was working. I saw her, she added some comments like at 3 o'clock in the night, like, oh my God, she's working. Like these comments were there. And it would send me on a high. I don't know why. Like I've done a lot of self-reflection now and I'm like, yeah, of course. It wasn't an external validation or anything. But I think for me, it was like, okay, I haven't lost my work ethic, even though I've reached the top.
Yeah.
Right. I was seeing so many people once you reach the leadership roles, it's like everything is about just delegate. And, I would see leaders go on ski trips and this and that, and they were not at all involved. And I was like, see, I am still gritty and I'm still with my team and I'm still helping them, push through the thing. And so when these kind of comments would come to me, it would make me like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. And so I think for me, I did not stop I think I just confused between work ethic and what is the unhealthy part of the work ethic.
Yeah.
And I think that line, when I crossed that to the other side, I didn't realize. If you think about it personally, I was also a mom. My kiddo was barely, like when I took on that role, he was 1.5, 2. By the time I ended up into, almost collapsing with 3 months to live, he was 3. I hadn't slept for 2 years. Like he was not one of those babies who slept through the night.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. And it went on till 2. Like I just knew that after he would go to sleep in like 45 minutes, he would wake up with the blanket and he would start crying. So I hadn't slept. And so it was like almost like a zombie mentality in my head where I was just go, 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 go. And I think I had to crash at some point. But again, I was like, well, I can't let that happen, right? Like people will think, if I say I need to slow down, I'm going to prove people right when they objected to me getting promoted to that level, because people were making comments like, oh my God, I don't think Bosky is ready because she still has a little one. Oh my God, I don't think she'll be able to travel so much. Like I'm talking about a time when I don't think we talked about all of these things so openly, right? This was like 8-ish years ago.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think I stopped to think about this question. I think, yeah, if my kid did not ask me that question, I think I would have just continued in that path and stayed a workhorse. And just it was just like a loop and a spiral. Like I didn't see anything outside of it.
Yeah, you spoke about work ethic. There's also this identity that we have for ourselves sometimes, right? This perception we kind of build out about who I am versus not. And sometimes when you have to tweak that or change that because of external factors, health and all of that,
No.
it really forces you to pause and reflect and unlearn certain
And
things.
100%. And like when I would talk to people like who were at very senior levels, and there were very few women who were at very senior levels, when I would go and talk to them and they'd be like, okay, financially, are you able to get help? Like we don't have family here. So it was, we had to get help. And so I'm like, yeah, we have a nanny and she's amazing. And so that was the other thing that weirdly was going on in my psyche. And I'm like, I have help. Why am I not able to do this? Why am I feeling like this? And so it was like, okay, so I should be able to have both sides. Why am I not able to have both sides? Right? And I think that the whole word about balance or having it all, back in the day, it was so weirdly constructed for so many women, again, 8, 9, 10 years ago, that I don't think I actually was thinking about this because I was so trying to be like, just do it all. Like I was being a doer as a mom and doer at work. And it was just kind of spiraling out of control.
So It sounds like you're very passionate about empowering women.
Hmm.
Where is that coming from?
I am so bullish about women. Whoever, my mission is to help 1 billion, 1 billion women break the glass ceiling. And for some, that glass ceiling, the breaking of the glass ceiling can happen inside corporate. And for some, it can happen by building your own company, building your own venture, own business. I think I was always like that. And I think some of it was just environment. So I grew up in a place called Shillong, which is on the northeastern part. It is the capital of a state called Meghalaya in India. And it is one of the very few matriarchal societies in the world. Matriarchal societies mean that the society is structured very differently. You have men who, after marriage, move into the girl's family. The girl gets all of the property and everything. The women are in leadership roles in the society. They are leading the charge in a lot of places. So I was born there. I grew up in a society where women leading and women supporting other women was a norm. So that was one thing that I think just growing up, that is how I saw everything around me, right? Of course, when I left Shillong and went to do my undergrad in a totally different part of India, I saw the real India, the real world, very different than when I came to the US for my master's again. I was like, okay, this is what the real world is. I was in a cocoon in my own world, but I think looking back, it was very, very important part of growing up to see what is possible, to see that there can be two realities in the world that exist, one that oppresses women and one that tells women you can never do anything, you can never be enough. And there is this another part of the world and a reality that also exists in the same world where women are rising to the top and they're doing things together and helping build that legacy. And I chose to the other way. And that has always been my thing right from the time I started my first role 25 years ago. I've always taken initiative in helping women either get hired more, getting promoted, rising to the top. I think when I left the corporate in 2018, 2019, I knew that this was the space that I wanted to be in.
You've spoken about the glass ceiling and coach a lot of senior women leaders through your Leaders Edge program as well. Why do women hit that?
I'm going to try to break it down into a few different parts. So I think one is just the structure, right? Like if you think about career and ladders, it starts with the first rung. We know that there is so much data that points to getting that first promotion is so much harder for women, even if women and men come at the same level with same education, even better education. And that kind of continues all along the way, making it harder and harder for women to climb up. Well, finally, when you reach those senior executive roles, it's even harder to kind of get in. And one of the main reasons why that happens at senior levels is because of access and sponsorship. Humans tend to support people who remind us of our younger self. So now if you put that in the context of corporate, the executive room, unfortunately, is still full of men. These men will see younger men, and I'm not even going into demographics right now. I'm just going on gender. There is instant affinity to support, to open doors, to create opportunities, to advocate for them. And so we see that happen very naturally with men. So that's one. And you and I cannot sit down and change the whole number game of the executives, right? So we do need to have access and sponsors. And that is a big part of the pillar in our Leadership Edge program for women. We have to learn how to figure this piece out in terms of getting sponsors across the business who are going to be opening the doors and finding ways that we can be relatable and relevant. Because I cannot change my gender. I cannot change the numbers game in the executive. So I have to figure that out. And so again, from a psychology standpoint, how do you build that sponsor? And we have a sponsor backing method, which I absolutely love. It worked wonders for me. It has worked wonders for every single woman in the program. So that is that one piece, I think, that does come as a hindrance for women. The second piece, I think, that also comes into play here as to why the glass ceiling exists is, again, not generalizing or stereotyping, but family and kids do come in for a lot of us. And sometimes they make us pause and ask some very hard questions about what is important. Whether you have an amazing partner who is equal in every respect or sometimes even does more. When a child gets sick, at least I can tell you my
Yes.
own, even today, even though dad is the more fun, right now he's 11. So, he's more fun. So for all the fun stuff, he still wants dad. But if he gets sick or if he hurts himself, he's back into the bedroom with me and I'm awake the whole night.
Yeah.
Think about how this impacts, whether we want to accept it or not. That is a reality that I think a lot of women are grappling with. Sometimes we do take a step back, and rebounding from that when the time comes is so hard. And at senior levels, again, without stereotyping and generalizing, we can say that a lot of us might have little kids who still need a lot of care. And of course, right now we are living in a world with RTO and lack of flexibility. I think that is very important. And the data is showing us that more than 72% of women are themselves leaving the workforce because we're like, no, we are going to do something else, which is why I'm seeing a lot of my clients now trying to build that business on the side.
Yes.
Because we are also living in a very different world here, right?
So, man, so many good insights there. So there were two things you spoke about, strategically having those sponsorships and building out those relationships in a meaningful way, right? And how you already have a lot of other things that might be going on, caregiving and other stuff, maybe even more so, right, than your male counterpart. What is the solution to that? For somebody listening to this saying, man, that's what I'm going through.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is where maybe a little bit of a mindset, a little bit of mindset, a little bit of strategy, right? I think I always tend to believe that half the battle is mindset in terms of the stories we tell ourselves. I think a lot of women that I talk to, we try to do it all. It is extremely hard to ask for help at work, at home. I have done that too, and I still struggle with that. We tend to try to be a super woman and a super mom. I think this is where the mindset is. You have to let a few balls fall on the ground. Not all balls are equal. Let's figure out what type of balls you can drop. Figure out which are rubber balls and which are glass balls. Glass balls, if they drop, there's going to be very big consequences and problems. Like for me, it was my son's health or my son's well-being. From a career standpoint, a glass ball could be there was this very important merger and acquisition that I was leading at the company. Like I couldn't mess that up, right? If maybe an upcoming release got a little sidelined, that was fine. But that merger and acquisition couldn't because it had much bigger stakes for the company's future, right? Rubber ball could be because I'm a fanatic about cleanliness, that if I didn't pick up all of the Lego pieces or if the laundry was not done, all of my OCD around some of those things, like what is good enough and what I can tolerate versus trying to like go completely crazy and staying late in the night and doing all of those things, right? So again, figure out what is that, figure out what balls can drop. And it's okay to drop the balls. Everyone's dropping, but no one talks about which balls they're dropping on social media because we like to only talk about the perfect, Instagram reel type of moments about all of these high moments in success, right? I think another thing is we get a lot of advice that I think works really well at our early career levels, right? When you hit 10 years, 12 years, it actually starts working against you. So I'll give you 3 examples. And this is where the strategy piece comes in. The one piece of advice that we always get is work harder, say yes to another high visibility project, and just keep on doing more. You need to become so essential that you are seen as this very reliable person that if there's anything that needs to be done, like you can be that person who's going to do it because you have to be seen as part of that equation in order to become undeniable and in order to kind of get that sense of security, right? We've been told this from our first job. But when you're hitting at senior levels, if you're constantly doing, you're not the lens or the criteria with which you're seen as like, okay, are you ready for a direct level or a VP level promotion? Or are you ready in this age that we are living in right now where director VP levels are reducing, but you still need to be seen very strategically in a commercial leader? You can't just be doing more because doing works well for junior levels where you do get promoted for that. But at senior levels, you have to have the mental space and the headspace to be showing up strategically. And you can still operate and think and communicate strategically without doing a lot of the stuff. I think a lot of us, we try to take on the work of our manager because we're trying to get into that level, right? But if you are communicating and showing your thinking still in your current level, you're not going to get promoted. So the answer is not doing more, but it's thinking, operating commercially, right? Which is so important right now, right? Because doing is becoming easier and easier and easier. And we are not going to be able to survive just by doing more. So that is one. So strategically, we have to show up, and commercially, we need to show up. I think the second piece is, again, as women, we constantly hear, get a mentor. And mentors are super important. But if that particular mentor is not inside the highest level in your company, who can make exceptions for you and open doors for you, you will continue to get advice and you will continue to fix and tweak your performance, and you're not going to get access. And so you have to understand the difference between the role of mentors and the role of sponsors. And you have to make sure that you're not just putting in all of your time and energy on one sponsor who's your skip or your manager, because maybe in a year's time they're going to move and you're going to start back at square one. So this is why you have to kind of figure out from the dynamic of your company, well, who are the final decision makers, who has that strategic power and leverage that you can start building a relationship. And the third piece is going to be a mindset out here, not a strategy. And the mindset is, if you have to influence someone, then that is just influence. It's not politics, right? I think a lot of times we confuse influencing people who have a different agenda and just kind of call it politics. And politics is a very dirty word no one likes to be a part of. That's just the nature of two people who have, or five people versus one person who have different agendas, different ways of thinking, different lens. And I have to find a way to align and influence. And that's just part of stakeholder management.
What do you mean by commercially? You said use the word commercial. What does that mean?
Yes, I've been talking about commercial fluency for years now, and that's been a big pillar of how I coach as well. So, and this is super relevant right now. Super, super relevant right now, like even more than I think before. And we should also talk about AI native, because that is super important right now as well. So commercial means that you have a really good sense of the value chain of how your company generates value in the market. And I'm not talking about theoretical business model. I'm really talking about that you understand that. And you also have a really good sense of trying to extrapolate some of the confidential numbers or the numbers that the executives talk about among themselves when they need to discuss how the business or the company is performing. Sometimes those numbers are confidential. I would say oftentimes those numbers are confidential. And those numbers are not going to be widely discussed. These are the numbers that executives will use for making people decisions, hiring, firing, laying off, other things as well. And you have to get to a place where you can extrapolate and you can make sense, because then you can start connecting your work in their language, in their numbers. And if they can see your thinking, then they'll buy into your thinking much more easily, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to extrapolate and think commercially like an executive. This becomes so important, especially for people at director VP levels, because when you're an IC, you have to be functionally very strong. So of course, you're going to be optimizing for that and helping your team succeed and all of those things. But you do have to make an identity shift to start thinking and operating like a business leader, because that is an expectation out of the people above you, that you do have a solid understanding of the business at large and where the business is going, so that if you have to make a very strategic trade-off that is actually good for the business, but maybe not so good for your team, you can make that trade-off. So a classic example, I had to actually accept the decision that I should not be hiring in my team many years ago. but I should actually be supporting hiring in our customer success team, and I had a different peer at a director level there, because it would actually help us with some of the ratios that we were optimizing as an executive team.
Yeah.
And then figure out how I can get some of the other wins in my team, because there was, so that is a simple example of commercial. Why is that so important? Right now, every single company is thinking about optimizing their cost and controlling the costs, right? You have to be able to understand what is happening. You can then predict if there is an upcoming layoff that might be coming. You're not going to be surprised then by saying, okay, the company's revenues are so good. Why was this particular team laid off? Like, well, you have to kind of then understand, like, okay, what is happening here? Sure, the company's revenue was great, but maybe the business unit was actually red. If the business unit is red, then what does that mean, right? So I think really that is just the basic first level of commercial fluency. And then, of course, the second level is like, okay, I'm now trying to pick up on what might be some of the ratios or the numbers that the executives and the C-suite might be thinking when it comes to growing the business and the business performance. How do I start connecting that, even if it's proxy metrics, without asking them some of those? Do I understand the P&L of the business in terms of just high level? Am I able to understand that in the context of what's happening in the industry with companies of a similar size? All of that is commercially thinking. There is a number piece, and then you also have a language around commercial, which is how you communicate. And that is really what strategic thinking is and strategically operating is, if that makes sense.
Totally. So, all right, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Go back again to the time where you were like, oh my God, I have 3 months. And then after that, you were like, hey, I actually did 2, not 1, but 2 amazing startups. That's pretty incredible. Tell me what you did next. So,
okay. The first thing I had to do was to get better, because I was given 3 months to live. So once I got better, I had to figure out what is the decision I need to make, because now there was freedom. And of course, when there are no constraints, your brain can again spiral into a lot of possibilities. So there was some quick reflection exercises I had to do to stop the spiral. And so one thing that I absolutely do every time I'm in a fork in the road, and I've also done this at work, is time boxing. So I forcefully add a constraint. And so for me, it was like, okay, I have to time box. And so I did, I think, a 1 day, so 8 hours of time boxing exercise to figure out what is next. Okay, what are my choices? So I was like, okay, I can go back to my last role. I can try to find another role. Or what? That was it. I didn't even think about entrepreneurship at that point in time. So I gave myself 1 day, and I went in and talked with 3 people. One of them I know would always support me. 2 of them I've intentionally kept in my life who actually pull me down, which is very counterintuitive. And the reason for that is I've realized that a lot of times when you only listen to your cheerleaders, they only show you the rainbows. You kind of make decisions in life without the pragmatism. But then when you have these Debbie Downers in your life, they bring in a dose of reality, and they'll tell me all the things why a certain idea is not going to work. And I need that. I need those critics, right? And so my husband and I, we started kind of talking, and my husband is like, you really love kind of doing all of these things with women. What if, like, what are some of the problems that you can solve? Like, maybe you can do something on your own. Why do you have to go back to the same thing? And so I think when I went to those 2 cynics, they told me, well, I don't think you should. Like, you're in your late 30s, like you're going to be in your 40s. You have a huge mortgage. Like, who starts a company at this point in time? Why do you want to go for uncertainty right now? And because they told me all of the things that I couldn't do and I shouldn't do because I'm a mom, because I'm a woman, I think that's where my rebellion side came in. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to do that, but I'll start a plan B as well. So I think it was a culmination of a few but very structured conversations in 1 day where I was like, okay, out of these 30, 40 different ideas of I could do, I've come down to 1 is I'm not staying at home. I am going to not go back to my last role, to apply at this level for these type of companies as a plan B, which means that it is a plan B, so it shouldn't get 90% of my energy. I'm going to probably put 50%, and the other 50% is where I'm going to focus on what problem can I solve for women so that I can make this type of an impact. So that was my step number 1. In 1 day, I got to that.
Yeah.
So forcing function.
Yes.
The
Good
second one
clarity.
was another forcing function. And I said, okay, I have to figure out what problem. I have to also figure out that there is a market for it. And this problem is urgent enough where my target market is going to open their wallet and pay. I knew in my heart I did not want this to be a side project. I did not want this to be a passion project. I wanted this to be a real business. And so and at that point, I gave myself 3 months. I was like, okay, in 3 months, I'm going to validate, but I'm going to validate in such a way that I'm also validating the financials.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So that's actually a very good thing. So find your customers who would pay first, right? So tell me about that first offer that you created.
So I think I had to very quickly learn a few different skills. One would be marketing, one learning how to sell, and the third is founder-led storytelling, right? Given that I had given myself 3 months to figure all of this out, I was also operating in a maniac speed. So lots of experimenting. I focused very less on building. I didn't even have a website. My first program was coaching, so the value prop has to be very clear. So I focused on that. And the second piece is, if this has financial legs, then I need to get a paid pilot before I spend any ounce of energy building the curriculum. So I had to really learn how to sell. If you're serious about solving the problem, I can help you this way. I don't work with everyone. So for me, that was the fourth piece that I had to really get really strong at, which is, if someone is not if they are not a fit, it's okay. I'm not going to get desperate trying to sign them. And for me, again, if it's a paid pilot, I'm not just asking, how much would you pay? Would you pay? Because I think, again, as humans, we are so bad at saying something we will do, but when the time comes, we do something totally opposite, right? Again, brain science and human behavior, classic. So for me, I was not going and testing all of those. Those are useless questions. I would get a totally wrong signal. For me, the best signal was, here is it. If you believe in the story that I'm telling you and the outcome that I'm trying to tell you, and you do believe that this is going to solve your problem, do this. And I've not given free access or any of those things from day one. I do a lot of things. There are tons of free resources. I write every day. We can get that. I have my newsletter. Read that. There are countless other tools. Use that. But if you want to get real results, then let's talk. Let's have a serious conversation, right?
Okay, yeah. So sounds like you experiment with pricing strategy, but you were very clear that from day one, the test is in the, I don't know what the right thing is.
The test, test is money in the bank. If there is no money in the bank, I did not waste my time in coffee chats.
Makes sense.
I did not try to get into the place, I'm going to get all testimonials right now, give it for free, and then I will charge. Once I prove, this has been our life in corporate. I didn't want to prove. I'm like, no, because I do have that credibility piece in the industry. I'm going to take that as a leverage and double down on that. But really learn how to talk about it. So that's why the storytelling became really important. Of course, I sucked. Looking back, I sucked 7 years ago. I'm sure that 7 years from now, I'm going to say I sucked in 2026 and everything that I did, but that's part of life, right?
Yeah. So what's your unfair advantage for this?
So my unfair advantage, I think number one was, very strong commercial fluency skills. That has been a game changer for me, even in corporate. That has been a game changer for me as companies hire me to advise even now, because I do believe that piece really gets you closer to strategic decision making. Because at the end of the day, even a nonprofit has to be financially successful. It's just the way they're making the decisions and they're being successful is very different. Money is unfortunately important. For anyone who says money is not important, well, we don't live in a world where we are bartering anymore, right?
Yeah.
The unit of exchange is money. So commercial fluency is really, I think that was really helpful. And that helped me not only in the corporate to rise to the C-suite, but that really helped me in my business, in both of the businesses. And that is also something that I see is helping more than 5,000 women in my Leadership Edge program and hundreds of other women in my Founders Edge program. So that's universally, I've got enough data to know that this works. So commercial fluency was one. The second piece I would say is storytelling. Like really learn how to tell stories in a way that when the right people hear it, they relate to it and they are like, this is me, right? This is me and this is who I can become. You need that even in corporate and work to get buy-in and influence. It's different type of stories that you say. I think, like in our Leadership Edge, we have 9 different stories that I teach. In business, it's totally different. And the second thing is, even though as a woman, I've had a very unhealthy relationship with money, I had to learn how to talk about money. So how to charge, how to increase, how to justify increasing, how to deal with objection handling during sales. That was a very important skill to learn even in corporate. How to deal with objections when I'm trying to present something, recommend something. Like executives would be full of objections. How do you deal with that? So I think there were a lot of transferable skills in terms of that. And I think the fourth and the most important is scrappiness. Like I'm the queen of scrappiness.
Mm-hmm.
If I could be in the worst situation, and I'm not saying this to brag or anything, I could be in the worst situation in my life, in my career, in my business. And I have this mindset, which I learned it from my dad. And it is about everything is figure outable. You have to first believe everything is figure outable. When you do that, your brain and mind will work in certain way for you to find solutions even out of the darkest times and the toughest challenges, right? And the second thing is, I think like, okay, if you're starting out from ground zero, then start putting constraints and start finding the easiest and the fastest way with the least amount of resources to kind of get. So you see the scrappiness kind of showed up there. I didn't have a website. I didn't go and find a co-founder. I didn't go and join an accelerator. I didn't go and try to raise. I was like, okay, what is the fastest and the scrappiest way where I don't have to spend anything? Like if I were a startup and my financial runway is like anything, what do I do? So I think those were some of the things that I would say my leverage or my, I don't know, what was the word that you used? Unfair advantage was,
Yeah. From constraints brings creativity. So what were some of the channels that kind of work for you? Like your initial set of folks, was it your own network or did you use like Facebook, LinkedIn? Where did you find people who resonated with the message?
Where did I find? Okay, let me think through. LinkedIn was one place, obviously. For me, it was because my target audience is there. Facebook was one. I didn't do any ads or anything. I used Facebook because there were certain women groups there to kind of share the story. But I think the word just spread because people would come in, listen to, or attend my workshops, or they are in my newsletter. That kind of brought in some more people. I think the results speak for itself. So right from the very first, I run my groups really small. So that I can pay individual attention. And I'm a very strong proponent of personalized programs because that's how you get results. And so very quick, the results started coming in. And so that brought in more and more and more people. And I have pivoted. And even right now I'm pivoting. So not be afraid of pivoting and completely changing a business model.
So what are some reasons for the pivots for you? Like, is that something you reflect on and you're like, this is what I want to do next? Or what do you look for?
So you can plan all you want. And then the market reality is going to tell you something very different. If you're doing the same thing again and again and again, and you're not getting the results, you cannot expect to get different set of results by just double downing on the same thing that you've been trying to do. And so I, again, put my time boxing constraint hat on. And so a lot of the times it was just natural, organic evolution of the business. But a lot of time it was also about being very, very attuned to what is happening in the market. Right? So like right now, the market's completely switched. So I'll give you a very tangible example. In She Trailblazers, we didn't have Founder's Edge from day one. We actually had Leadership Edge from day one, right? But what I was seeing in the market, the data showed clearly, well, more than 70% women are leaving. I was talking with women, we are seeing what is happening right now. Well, layoffs can happen anytime. People are also proclaiming 80%, 90% of the knowledge work might go away. Well, where does that leave us? Do we just twiddle our thumb and wait to get laid off? Or should we start putting in the building blocks so that we have the financial freedom and the power to make the decision to either walk away from whatever the default corporate setup is, do we build that optionality? And so this started about, I would say early last year, where I was like, okay, the signs are coming. So this is, again, the commercial side, right? Like you're seeing what is happening and you're able to pull in the numbers and you're taking a look and you're like, okay, I need to start preparing before I need to act in desperation. And so Founders Edge went through a whole bunch of evolution and pivots. Founders Edge had to be structured very differently than the Leadership Edge because founders can come in different ways. Someone who has no idea, you're still in corporate and you're trying to like, okay, in 5 years I'm going to, maybe because I know that I want to get out of this, to someone who's like, I'm almost ready and I have an idea, to someone who's like, I don't know, I've got 5 things I can be doing, to someone who's like, I'm generating something, but it's not to a place where there's consistent revenue to even call it a business, to someone who's like, okay, everything's working, I'm making consistently 20, 30. Now I need to scale it. So there are different models for that. AI nativeness is a big piece. What does it really mean to become an AI native executive or an AI native leader? How do you find time-saving ways to level up so that you're strategically positioned for 6 months, 12 months, 16 months from now? So I think there are some pivots that are just natural evolution that you just need to do proactively. And there are some that you do have to look foresight into, okay, I need to be prepared. And I tell the women the same thing. I'm like, we can't be waiting for when you're not going to have a job.
Yeah.
Because that is the reality we're living in, unfortunately, right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think with AI, the future of work itself is definitely changing. And we're trying to like all
100,
figure out what it is.
100. Yes, I think the future of work and what does that look like is up for grabs right now, irrespective of all of these other hot takes that are coming. It's important to know, but it's also important not to be like, okay, everything's over, because I know that that's what it feels like. And I think what I'm trying to do is, yes, everything is uncertain.
Yeah.
But, here is how we can build some sort of certainty in this uncertainty.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was such a good journey. So at some point you've scaled. What were some of those inflection points for you? And how did you decide who that team is going to be?
So in the beginning, I did everything on my own. And it was a very deliberate decision, even though it was a crazy decision. But looking back, I think it was the best decision. So first, of course, I didn't have money. So I had to do everything on my own. And I was also moving so fast that it would be really hard for me to kind of get someone and spend the time to train and do all of those things. And most importantly, for me as a founder, I had to go through that exercise so that when I would be ready to hire, I would know who I have to hire and who I don't have to hire. What are my blind spots? And how could I lead someone to problem solve so that I could actually get the business to grow, right? Once I figured that piece out, I knew, like after I did a few cycles, I knew that operations is time consuming, and it is also something which is not a strategic piece that I need to spend time on. There are lots of repeatable tasks. I was like, okay, do I need to really be the person who's setting up all of these things, right? Like on the back end. Am I the person who's kind of going and reminding people to make the payment or sending the payment? But when someone's coming and wanting to learn about the program, is this something that they would like to learn from me or someone else? And for me, I made a very strategic decision that no, it's me, because I also don't work with everyone. So I want to be very particular about who my clients are. So that was not something that I'm going to give it to someone. So that was, again, a very deliberate exercise. And so I hired the first person on the operations and the marketing side. And then I hired a bigger team.
Today, how much percentage would you say is your one-on-one versus your coaching program?
I would say group is about 80%.
Okay. I see.
Group is 80%. The one-on-ones, I work very, very few. So I would probably do one-on-one, maybe one client every 3 months, one new client every 3 months.
I think the people who are listening to this podcast are probably folks who want to, or who feeling this quite pull towards like, hey, should I be exploring this other thing? So let's start with somebody who maybe they are a mid-level or a senior exec and they feel like, maybe I should be doing something else. What is one piece of advice you would give them that they can do within the next 30 days? Besides join your program, I think.
Besides join my program. Yes, you should absolutely look at Founder's Edge. I think one thing that you should do is stop thinking about getting the best idea. Because it doesn't matter how much people tell you they love your idea. At the end of the day, if people are not paying for your idea, nothing matters. And so I see so many people, they contemplate that, I need to get this perfect idea. Like I need to get the right idea and then I'm going to start working on this, right? Related to this, I think it's really, really also very important, given where we are right now. People think it's going to need 50, 60 hours or 20 hours extra of work. And I'm going to start thinking about it once I leave the corporate. Yeah. So it's the procrastination thing, or maybe it's not even procrastination. It's like, I don't have time. Where am I going to make time for this? Right. And what I kind of say to that, because I do hear this a lot and it's very real, is you'll never find time. Life has a weird way of filling itself up. Like time will fill up itself with a whole bunch of other things. And so don't, again, treat this as a binary. The question here is not about leave corporate versus start your business. It is about building the building blocks. It could be something that you're building that'll enable you that optionality to figure out what you want to do next, or whether you want to have your 2 feet on the 2 sides, right? It doesn't have to be either or. It can be and. And there's so many different types of businesses that you don't have to just go and build a AI-based app to have a second business or a second source of income. And you don't have to figure out everything right now. But you do need to start the building blocks, and you do need to get the clarity of what you're trying to do and how you can do it. And you need to get some early signals quick, right? So like with women, when I'm working with them, in a matter of couple of days, we're able to get some of that clarity. I took 3 months, but right now women are getting paid pilots in a matter of a few weeks. And so you don't need to do all of that. So I think the 2 things. One, it doesn't take that much time to figure out and get answers and clarity, because that is super important, because that's where we try to ruminate. And the second piece is, it's not a and or, it's not a binary. You can start thinking about building some of this as opposed to having to then figure out when your other option is completely gone. Looking back, I think I should have started it having that cushion of financial success, because I was everywhere. I was applying to jobs. I was interviewing. I passed out in the final round of one of the big tech companies because of the pressure becomes real and the desperation becomes real. And then your chances of making mistakes and your chances of either saying yes to something or no to something, that increases a lot when the desperation is very high.
Got it. Yeah, it's almost like start before you're ready. This is whether you like it or not, this is the future. So
this is the future. You prepare. Yeah. And it's got nothing to do with like forcing yourself, like I gotta go and build an app. There are women who are coming and telling me, I've been in tech all my life. I just want to get out of tech. Yeah. And so again, building a business doesn't have to be an AI app. Like I've got women who are building AI app. I'm building an AI app right now for my customers. I also have a side business with my son as a Kindle business, totally non-tech related. I have someone who has a dog treat business. I have someone who's doing therapy coaching. I've got someone else who's doing health coaching. I've got someone else who's who has a cooking, baking business. I've got someone else has something totally different. Like it doesn't have to be just coaching, right? There's so many ways to bundle, package, and do things right now. Just do.
Yeah, just do. Yeah. You said something that's an amazing stat. Wow. So people who work with you within like 2 days, they actually go to a commercial
couple weeks. Yeah. Like a couple weeks. So my focus is all ideas are worthless if it doesn't have financial leg.
What do you think they realize? Like, what are 1 or 2 things that has been so powerful that they're able to see that sort of thing?
I think one is I don't need to undercharge.
Okay.
As simple as that. That's I think we are so conditioned as women. It's like, oh, it's a pilot. I'm just going to do it for free. I've never done this before. I'm just going to do it for free. Or the other thing is like, oh, maybe I'm just going to charge like a little bit, right? A little bit. And I'm like, why? So I think that is one. I think the second thing is they come to me with a solid solution. And when I'm also working with people, I also ask them, how open are you pivoting? Like, you've tested this enough and if no one is ready to pay, okay, wait, fine. In 2 weeks, maybe we're going to change a few things and we're going to try. But if it's not, the data is staring at you in your face, right? So you have to be open to pivoting.
Yeah.
So I think those two things is what I would say.
And then for the other cohort, let's say there's somebody there, they've started something, maybe they're starting to see that there is demand for it or something. How do they think about scaling?
Absolutely. So they're making consistent revenue and now they want to scale. Okay. So for that cohort, we try to figure out, what does scale mean? As simple as that, because scale can mean so many different things, right? Scale, does it mean you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it at a larger scale without spending a lot of money? So this is where automation or technology or operation scaling, like a lot of these things can come in. Or you're trying to scale yourself, right? As a founder, right? That can also mean from a team scaling. So what does scale really mean? And we do a lot of like quarterly business planning as well for some of those one-on-one clients who are at that stage. And so it's really about, I think, mapping that strategy out. So the first thing is you want to know what scale means for you. And it is also about, I think, trying to then figure out what are the things that you need to fine tune, right? And then you can get those results.
Thank you for sharing that. To wrap up, what is next for Bosky? So if you look at like 1 year, 2 year, what is success for you?
Oh my God. I've been in this space, I think, asking myself a lot of these questions because I've made so many pivots in the last several months. I am going to be double downing on my Founder's Edge program because that is a very real reality that women are facing. And then in the Leadership Edge for the next 1 year, it is about making it so relevant with what is happening in the AI context right now, with companies becoming more AI native, that I want to really double down with all of the best resources and everything possible so that women can position themselves in the strongest way. So that is that. And the third is I am trying to figure out YouTube.
Okay.
I'm going to try to figure out this whole video thing and start to get more comfortable in video and try to, I think, just get onto the YouTube and grow that as another channel, because I also don't want to be dependent on just one channel with its own algorithm that can change, because I bet all of these channels are going to be changing in this current world. So I want to just kind of be prepared for that.
All right. Yeah. Bosky, thank you so much for sharing a very transparent and authentic journey. And I'm sure this is going to inspire so many people. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Absolutely, guys.